My name is Blake Robison, and I am with Pete Dougherty, the Wisconsin State Sportswriter of the Year. Welcome, Pete.
Hi Blake, how you doing?
Great. How about yourself?
Not too bad. A little cold in the middle of the deep freeze in the upper Midwest, but doing fine otherwise.
Well, in North Carolina, it's about 10 degrees, so pretty cold.
That's probably worse for you than -10 is for me. So
Really,
I feel for you.
10 degrees in North Carolina is about -50. So,
Yeah,
but Pete, if you're ready, let's jump into some questions.
sure.
All right. So basically, just walk me through your path to how you got to where you are now and all the stops along the way.
So I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, and I learned how to read by like age 4 or 5 by reading the sports pages. And so I always had a huge interest in sports and played some things through high school. And I went to UW-Madison, had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And my fourth year there, I was reading Sports Illustrated, and I was thinking, you know what, I want to do this. I think I can do this. I think I can do this better than these guys. That's how naive I was. But I thought, yeah, I want to do this. So I started a path towards journalism, graduated undergrad at Madison in English and philosophy, went to grad school at the University of Missouri, had an internship at the Kansas City Star for, I was a stringer, not an intern. I was a stringer for about a year and a half with the Kansas City Star, then an internship with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel after I graduated. And just to tell you how like timing can make such a big difference, I was late getting out my resumes, near the end of the school year. And all these places that I was sending looking for internships, if nothing else, had already hired their interns. But the Journal Sentinel had hired their intern, and their intern had subsequently, just like the day before uh, my resume arrived, the intern had gotten offered an internship at SI, so she took that, and the sports editor had thrown out all the resumes, and like the next day mine arrives, and it's a Wisconsin kid. So basically, I think I had the job as long as I didn't just do something ridiculously stupid in the interview. And so we talked on the phone. I got the internship there. When I interned there, I got to know Cliff Crystal, who's won this award multiple times and other awards, through you guys. And I got to know him. And so when the internship ended, I went to work part-time in Madison. A job up in Green Bay opened a few months after that. Cliff helped me get that job. And I covered UW Green Bay basketball for 6 years and a little bit of everything. And then in '93, I started covering the Packers, and I've been doing that full time ever since then. So not a lot of moving around compared to a lot of people in our business.
So about that, having your roots planted in one place, there's got to be a sense of community, and you know the fans, you know the people you connect with, the athletes. I mean, what kind of a special connection is that?
Yeah, having grown up in Madison, like I said, learning how to reading the newspaper. I mean, I followed the Packers very closely. So I had a decent knowledge of them, nothing like a journalist should have, but a pretty decent knowledge of them. And the biggest thing, more than anything, is having covered them for all this time, you just build up great institutional knowledge. And so that's the job I'm in now as a columnist helps me make use of all that for providing perspective, historical perspective. I do these really extensive chats, mailbags every week. There are 5,000 plus words, and all that institutional knowledge I built up over 30 some years of covering this team. I think that's maybe like the best use of it is being able to answer all these different questions, share what I know, share what I don't know, um, share what our educated guesses, uneducated guesses. I just can provide a lot of perspective that way. And having lived here a long time, I mean, I've lived in Green Bay longer than I've lived anywhere now, and yeah, you get a feel for just how important this team is, how locked in it is, especially this story, this team, the way the way it was founded, the way it still exists, is so tied into the community deeper than I got to think any pro sports franchise in this country. And they're the biggest thing going in the state. They're the they draw more attention than anything else in this state. And they have a nationwide following because of the Lombardi years when teenage guys were watching pro football on TV in the 60s. And the Packers were great, so they picked them as their team. And, like probably a lot of NFL writers around the country, I get email from people, Packers fans. I get, obviously Packers fans for me from all over the world. So it's the NFL is the biggest thing going.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be one of the coolest things to be a part of this storied history and to be kind of intertwined in all of it.
Yeah, it's you know, I don't know if I'd call it a front row seat. I think a front row seat would be working for the organization, being in the meetings and being in the building. But pretty good seats to see what's going on, to see how business is conducted. It's a really fascinating way to make a living. That is for sure.
So along your journey, I mean, you've been in one place for most of it, but still a lot of things happen, a lot of different things. So is there something that was surprising or kind of out of the blue at any point along your journey?
Uh, Nothing surprising leaps to mind just because I don't think I was observant enough or aware enough to be surprised. It's just, I thought this is just life. This is how it works. But, when I look back, when I went to grad school in Missouri, I just assumed I would never live in Wisconsin again. I just thought I'll go wherever the job goes. And if it's Phoenix or if it's somewhere out east or somewhere in the south or wherever, I mean, there's just no way I'll ever live in Wisconsin again. And then just how that, as I explained before, how those dominoes fell to where I end up back in Milwaukee. So I end up back in Wisconsin, and that takes me back to Madison, then up here to Green Bay. I guess the one surprising thing is I remember thinking when I filled up I was living in Madison, filled up my car. I had enough. My possessions didn't do more than fill up one carload, and I brought them up, moved up here, and I remember thinking on the drive up, you know, if I'm not out of here in 3 years, my career has taken a really bad turn. And here we are, 30, that was 1987 when I started. So we're closing in on 40 years later, and I'm still here. And I came to find that, within the first month, I really enjoyed
Yeah.
living in Green Bay. Um, but it just, tells you, you know, be careful what you think because, you don't know what to expect when you get somewhere.
Yeah, there's something just special about a place. I mean, Green Bay is, of course, one of the most storied sports towns, period. But that kind of leads me to my next question. So, if more of a fun question, this is my favorite. If you could cover any event, sporting event at any venue, of course, you get to cover Green Bay, so that's automatically one of the best. But if you could cover any event at any venue, what's your dream combination?
So does it need to be a venue that's standing right now?
No, any.
Because I think the coolest thing would be to go to Yankee Stadium or Wrigley Field in like the 1920s. Maybe watch the 27 Yankees, cover one of those games. Um, I think that would be pretty hard to top.
Yeah, the storied history of baseball back in the 1900s. There's some like a aura about it.
And the cool thing, like, so you couldn't do it now because there's a new Yankee Stadium, but like, that's even the feeling, I'll go to a ball game at Wrigley, once every year or two. And it's pretty cool to think that, 100 years before, someone was sitting right where you were sitting, doing the same thing that you were doing, basically in a really similar atmosphere. There's just something really alluring and really cool about that.
Yeah, baseball's unmatched when it comes to that aspect of
Yeah.
sports. So going back to your career, is there a highlight moment? I mean, of course, the job is the highlight, as you mentioned, having the front row seat. But is there a highlight that sticks out to you?
For the I don't know if highlight would be the right word, but the thing that jumps out most is because this team from 1968 through 91 was the dregs of the NFL. You probably are not familiar with Hogan's Heroes, but it was a TV sitcom from the 60s about some prisoners of war in Germany. And whenever the commandant or any of the soldiers at the prison camp, whenever their bosses wanted to threaten them to get them to do a job right, they threatened to send them to the Russian front. And Green Bay was the Russian front of the NFL, where if teams had contract issues with their players, in the late 60s through the early 90s, they'd threaten to trade them to the Packers to get them to fall into line. I mean, they were in really bad shape. They won, they had that was 24-year period. They had 2 playoff appearances and 4 winning records in that time. There was a possibility they could have lost the franchise even, if the losing had continued. And then when the new regime came in, Ron Wolf, Mike Holmgren, they brought in Favre and then signed Reggie White. The buildup as that team got better and better, by the 96 season, the buzz around that team was just off the charts. The training camp practices every day were drawing 3,000 to 5,000 people, and there weren't seats at that time. Like, they had to bring your own chairs, and they'd stand around the fence. And the popularity, it was just off the charts how popular this team was and what it meant to this city, to this whole state, that this franchise that had this incredible history, the most championships in league history, but then had this 24-year fallow period that was where they were the worst. To watch it come back to life was pretty remarkable, and just how grateful people were around here. Now, that has changed a lot in the last 30 years with the run of quarterbacks. They've gotten very used to winning, and so some of that joy has lost, and when they lose, things get pretty ugly at times. But at that time, you could not. I just can't imagine a vibe around a franchise scaling any higher than it was around that team in the 95, 96 seasons as they went up that ramp to become the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, the ripple effect from that season to now, I mean, it's still being felt. But I mean, I know some Packers fans that with their exit to the Eagles, they aren't happy. And I think some perspective maybe would help. It's just when you're that good.
Yeah, and they've had that run of quarterbacks. So, but yes, in fact, this is a while ago now, but, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago. I think it was more like 5. A national writer, labeled it entitled instead of Titletown, Entitled Town. And there's definitely a strain of that running through Packers Nation right now.
I guess it's a bad problem to have, or a good problem to have,
And it's, to some degree, I think it's to a large degree, I think it's like this everywhere now. I'm sure. I mean, it's just social media has to have a big voice in this, because anybody and everybody can weigh in and voice their opinion. So that I'm sure that has a big effect on that this is, Green Bay is no different than everywhere else, probably.
Oh yeah. All right. I love the Green Bay talk. Trust me, I do. I could talk all day about the NFL and the Packers, but I do have a question for you, maybe the most important. So for the new generation, maybe somebody like myself, an aspiring professional in the field of sports media, do you have any advice or words of wisdom for them?
Man, it is such a different world than when I came in. It was still the traditional journalism world when I came in. Computers had just come into it, like the traveling computers. There were these little Tandy made by Radio Shack computers where you could see like 4 lines of copy. And I mean, there was a time in our office where where we didn't have the internet at all. And then we had 2 stations of the internet. You had to sign up if you needed time on it. There was a sign up sheet to get on it. I mean, this is such a different world now. And the way people get into the business, you don't have to go, I still think there's a great value in going to journalism school and learning that way. And there's a lot to be learned there. And there's something scary about, people who never had to do any reporting and are just sitting in their house, taking other people's reports and writing stories off those, and that's how they're making their living, and they haven't had to actually do the work of what a journalist has to do to learn how the business works and to be there firsthand covering a team. I would say if you can get a job somewhere and it means covering high school sports, even though you might have aspirations to cover the biggest thing going, take it, do it. You will learn so much covering high school sports about covering a game, what to pay attention to, um, how to deal with people. And these games they're important. And now they're not important to a million people, but to the people participating. Think of yourself when you were in high school and either going to games or if you were participating. Just think how important those games were to you. Well, that's how important they are to high school kids now too. So if you get that chance, do it and learn the business from the ground up. That's really honorable, important, good work. So I highly recommend it for anybody as a really good starting point.
Because what I'm hearing is say yes and get your hands dirty.
Yes, yeah. Thanks for taking my taking my 3 minutes of going on and putting it succinctly. You will make an excellent journalist.
Well, I mean that's the best advice I've heard. I mean, those are my two sticking points. So I think you knocked that one out of the park. But I now want to just hand you the microphone and say if there's anything you want to say, anything on your mind, the floor is yours.
No, I just want to say thanks for the award and thanks for everybody in Wisconsin who voted for me. It really is a super super cool honor to get this. And I think of all the great journalists just from the state of Wisconsin who have won this. It's really honored company. And there's the old line from Red Smith. At first I was a little sheepish about getting this, but then I decided, who am I to question the committee's wisdom? So I just want to say thanks to everybody, and I'm really grateful.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Pete. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Once again, congratulations, Pete Dougherty, the Wisconsin State Sportswriter of the Year. It's been a pleasure, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Blake, and great talking with you also.
Thank you.